Welcome back to the Game of Two Halves, and we are running a little bit late if you've just joined us, and that was because we had some technical issues for the first 20 or so minutes of the show, but we are back on deck and we're powering through all of our guests tonight. We've had some great guests. Greg Brown, former Matilda's coach back in the late 90s. We also had the co-founder and former president of FC Leopold, Mitch Viles. And now it's time for our third guest of tonight's show, the president of the Geelong Galaxy United Football Club, Marina Krasic. Marina, welcome back to the Game of Two Halves. It's a pleasure to have you back. We've had you on the show early in the year. Now we've got you midway through the season.
That is correct, Tonchin. I've had a few people comment. I'm back on again. I said, well, what do you want me to say? Yeah. Women's World Cup, Galaxy go hand in hand.
That's exactly right. Now we'll talk about the World Cup and its effects on your club and locally. But let's talk about Galaxy, because since we last spoke, Geelong Galaxy have received a very, very notable recognition from Football Victoria. Tell us a little bit more about the Game Changer accreditation.
Yeah, so look, a little bit of a process, but not too complicated to go through. You'd be familiar enough with the GRFC, the Geelong Regional Football Committee. So, we've spoken about there and had Josephine come and talk to the group there. But I don't think a lot of people realise it's actually an initiative by the Australian government. So it's not even exclusive to football, aka soccer either as well. But Football Australia, Football Victoria have done their adaptation of it as well. And the prime focus is exactly on the support of women and girls and how the club is progressing. It's not too complicated to go through and to do. Pull down menus, multiple choice sort of questions, 0 to 25%, that sort of a concept and stuff. But then it did also involve follow-up meetings with Football Victoria, where, again, Josephine was fantastic. She even took the time to catch up with me on a Saturday, just based around working full-time. We were trying to organise things to help step through and allow us to develop an action plan. And then, therefore, how does Football Victoria and the governing body sort of support you with that component? So, I mean, the model is there and the government is behind it. There may be some challenges, as everywhere, with resources as we go through the process in there, but it is great to see that the number one and mandatory module is the women and girls.
What does it mean? Like, once you've got the accreditation, does it help with grants? Does it help with?
Absolutely, yeah. So that's one of the things that they definitely point out with their, again, is sort of showing that you've got a commitment and a plan, and it is broader than the women's and girls. It does talk about the welfare of all players around there. Does even talk about financial stability and that there, but they do sit there going that there'll be priority given towards government grants with those that have achieved through that process coming up. And, definitely we have had a little bit of support even with the Women's World Cup. I mean, I know that the Football Victoria, which was great to see, did provide opportunities for the Nigeria sort of Canada game for people to go attend. Well, fantastic. And it's all over the media, the sales, the records that we've been making. But, it also does give the opportunity for others to go through. So we did get some, first priority tickets, but we got shared out with other clubs too, which was great to see as well.
Now, one of the things this year that has the World Cup obviously has a direct impact on a lot of clubs is the social events that are being formed, the watch parties, whatever you want to call them. But that's been absolutely fantastic to see. Now, you've hosted one and you're hosting one again this weekend at your new club rooms there at Hume Reserve. We've got some great photos there, the colour, the pomp and ceremony. It just looks like an awesome atmosphere. How was it? How did it go down?
No, it was absolutely fantastic, and logistics come into some of this stuff with volunteers and that as well. So we did have our youth girls on the Thursday night do train out at Northern Bay on the artificial surface there. So we had them finish a little bit earlier, make their way to Hume Reserve on the way through. Allowed them to sit down and have dinner. So great volunteers here in the kitchen. They got to have their meals, cleared up, set up, and then allowed for our seniors and the Carios group of seniors to then finish their training, have all the meals. And I reckon by 8 o'clock, everyone was ready to go. I think we had a minor tech difficulties. She had the tech difficulties. Thankfully, it was at half time. Poor Mario, I think, did get a little bit of heckling. Hasn't paid the Optus bill, but he got it all up and running, and so it was quite good to watch. And the cheer, when they sort of through, and that was just fantastic, and just lovely for again, to have the youth and have the younger kids watch it. We're so blessed having it supported here in Australia and New Zealand. It's not which we've all grown up with the 2 a.m., 3 a.m. alarms going off. And a Thursday night. And, the kids had a great time and looking forward to this Thursday night. I will say, though, the Monday night, we're still discussing about what's happening because so many have got tickets to the Matildas and Canada game, being the first Matildas game being hosted as part of the World Cup here in Melbourne. So, we'll be checking what's going on there. Then maybe we'll have the big crowds out there in Amy Park.
Yeah, well, speaking of that, I'm glad you brought that up. It is next Monday that Australia are playing their third World Cup match. And as a result, we will not be on air. We will actually go to air on the following night on Tuesday at 8 p.m. as a result of that. I don't think anyone will be watching our show. In fact, we won't be watching our show. We'll be watching the Matildas as well. But look, that's one of the impacts that you could almost say a direct impact. The Matildas have brought the country together. They've really kind of even such an AFL mad town like Geelong. We in the Geelong Advertiser, I think it was last Wednesday or Thursday, there was an 8-page lift out. You do see occasionally billboards and things like that. So that's obviously having a bit of an effect. But the lasting legacy, I guess, when all the AFL people go back to their sport and this and that, but the rest of the world game fans then, keep on the fire burning, the passion burning. We asked Mitch, are we ready as a sport here in Geelong for the expected increase in interest, particularly from young girls who will want to play? In your opinion, Marina, are we ready? And do we need to do something special over the coming summer months, summer sevens or things like that, to keep that interest going for those that do want to try soccer that have never played it, for example?
Yeah, look, I think clubs will have the challenges. As you know, we've got the continued challenges by all clubs. And while we are all football, sort of soccer passionate around there, it's a facility. So we'll all do the best that we can with supporting the kids. But the continuity, as you mentioned, we had a bit of a come and try. But it was really tagged on at the end of the mini race, which Cryo hosted there at Hume Reserve. But it was great to see the kids all there having a bit of a go from that part. Galaxy, which they have the last summer, will be hosting again a Summer Sevens program going through there. But one of the things, the model that we've had for the last summer for this was participation. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't the ladder, it wasn't the scoring, and kids could register as individuals and then just be tagged onto the team. So I think that, again, is the continuity. And what's also positive, we have a lot of our players, and my own daughter, she does futsal, and that's not as strong here with the region. And I think that that's such an opportunity that is finally being embraced by Football Victoria in the state, and therefore us as a region. And that gives the kids an opportunity, because a lot do travel to Melbourne, even Ballarat, and some of the other regional areas have stronger futsal, particularly for girls, than what Geelong has got. From that part. So that's something that I think as a continuity will be great to do. So that Summer Sevens participation, having a go, and running it there at the Leisure Time Centre. And then, the futsal as an opportunity as well for the kids to go through and do. We definitely know that the Ballarat girls competition, which I think Western United hosted last season, Shepparton, we're hearing talk about that. And we know a lot of the clubs, community and NPL clubs get behind those tournaments. And not only are they great tournaments, they're also not bad. And Tonchi, I'm sure you've been to them with your children, a great little sort of like a weekend and just a bonding session for the kids, and they're the memories they have.
I had the pleasure of actually going to my first one earlier this year, and as the Boys FC up in Bendigo, and we turned it into a weekend away. And look, the kids loved the fact that we went up there on Friday and they took the day off school. But it was as you say, I'd heard so much about how big it was, and I'd never realise just how big it was until I actually went there. And then obviously there's Girls FC pre-season. But then, as you say, there's the Shepparton Cup coming up in September, October, which apparently is just massive. Yeah. Last year, unfortunately, was the floods, I think, that ruined it. But this year, I'm sure it's going to be just as big, if not better. But that's great to see. And look, I think you're right. I think the momentum that this Women's World Cup, but also just the post-COVID and more kids wanting to turn to soccer for whatever reason, I think that's going to be a big thing as well. And now more and more kids are going over to Europe as well. We've seen Ben Zierlich from North Geelong going over to England. We've seen Anthony Leban, who signed a professional contract in Croatia. The Skoko boys. There's more and more opportunities now starting to open up as well, and people are just starting to realise, well, look, the world's your oyster as far as the world game, and that's that other added appeal, isn't it, of the local game?
Absolutely. And I think it would be remiss, and I have got this as a little note here, Kyra Cooney-Cross, I mean, she needs to be embraced.
Absolutely.
She wasn't born in Victoria, but she sort of grew up here. And in those days, probably I call it pre-Galaxy, she played with the Ballarat, with the boys team there. But, then was NTC as that came about.
Yep.
But, family, we've got to embrace her as a local Victorian and a local, Torquay Greater Geelong girl. And I know when she's been back in the region, she's come to clubs, she's gone and visited teams, she's come to see our Galaxy and stuff, and if she's had a friend coming to visit the family, she's brought them along too. But I mean, there's a Matilda, so there's a girl that's done the pathway and representing the country, and what a great role model she is. And I don't think she gets recognised enough for her on-the-field performance as well.
Yeah.
So, big fans.
And that is definitely well worth mentioning, Kyra Cooney-Cross. But there's three players that have played with Galaxy and used Galaxy as a stepping stone to getting into the NPLW Victoria competition. We had Natalie Pichuk, former junior goalkeeper, on last week's shows. If you missed it, folks, go onto our YouTube channel, and it was a great interview. She's only 18 and she's already broken into NPLW Victoria. But two girls from two ladies from Galaxy, including last year's captain Emily Sutcliffe and Chrissy Merry, have now gone on to Burundara Carey Eagles, who are doing very, very well in the NPLW competition.
Yes.
Can you envisage a lot of other juniors from Galaxy making the jump? Because we've had some very, very young players make the grade in the last couple of years at senior level. So there's some great potential coming up through the ranks, isn't there?
Yeah, look, I mean, absolutely. And look, I mean, you touched on before you went through the ladder. I mean, we're still pushing and on the edge of getting into the top four there with Galaxy, with our senior women. But I mean, Aya is leading goal scorer for the league at the moment, which is fantastic. But, it's being supported. I may get my number slightly off, Tonchi, in my rounding, but last weekend we may have had actually 5, but we've got 5 under-17 players on rotation in the senior squad, which is, great. And I think only 2 of them will age out from under-17s next season. So that just shows you, by the NPL model, their bottom age under-17, but it just shows you, again, the development and the depth that we've got coming through. And you are correct as well, I think, even over the pathway from Galaxy, because the other one as well, I think, I'd like to give a shout out, while not from the playing perspective, but, Kat Smith sort of started her career as the coach and was a head coach when Galaxy made the grand final.
Correct.
Back into that period. And, now she's, the head coach of the Western Sydney Wanderers, A-League. So, again, developed their skill set, contributed as well to the local competition and progressing further. And then performance-wise, showing the potential, our under-13s who are also doing extremely well, bet 2-0 on the weekend. South Melbourne, who, a bit of a powerhouse club and top of the ladder. So, that was a great result. And I think, surprised a few people from South Melbourne. And we've been competitive against them in the past sort of stuff. But, but that was great for our juniors. And a couple of these were the juniors that were in last year's Victorian schoolgirls competition. So, you can see it from that young group going through the under-17s. And as we've touched on, progressing all the way through the NPLW. So we're developing well here and we're being very well represented from the region.
Brilliant, thank you. See, we had a lot to talk about, lot to talk, and that's the beauty. There's so much happening at the moment, and obviously Galaxy United and the Women's World Cup and the NPL, VPL. Sorry, there is so much to talk about. Marina, thank you for joining us on the show. Wishing you all the best for the rest of the season, and indeed the off season looks like it's going to be a very, very busy off season, but that's the way we like it, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Good on. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Marina Krasic, the president of Geelong Galaxy United, thank you very much for being a part of tonight's show.